Hey guys, how's everybody doing? It's Craft Week Monday. What did you all do over the weekend? Did you craft anything? Are you sitting around watching TV or doing house things? Hopefully you're being crafty while we've got all this time to do it. And today we're actually going to make a project that we made a few years ago when we did a show at the Vanderbilt Mansion, Biltmore House. And it was really fun because we did this project outside in the gardens, and then we went inside and did a behind-the-scenes tour and a flower arranging demonstration. So it was really fun. But I've not made these actually since we did that show years ago. But it's such a fun project because it's made with pumpkin seeds. Now, you could also do it with sunflower seeds or squash seeds, which is sort of a pumpkin. It doesn't really matter. But seeds are such interesting things that you can do so many different things with that people don't even realize. And if you're a fan of I used to be a costume designer for television and film and opera. And operas are known for needing big scale things, but not having a lot of money. And even movies that I did with like Jake Gyllenhaal and Mariah Carey and people like that, even they have budgets, but opera have real budgets. And one place that a pumpkin seed has shown up that you might not have known was in the 60s, the movie Camelot actually used pumpkin seeds on the wedding dress to give it a big scale. And when you look at that movie and you look at that wedding dress, you think, oh my gosh, it's beautiful and the lace is so detailed. But just keep in mind that that entire train of that wedding gown is actually just pumpkin seeds. Now, I didn't think about this till recently, but when I went to the store to get these pumpkin seeds, I didn't realize that there were more than one kind. So what you see here today, I have some roasted, salted pumpkin seeds, which is actually what, most people are more familiar with. And then there are raw in shell pumpkin seeds. Now the difference is the raw in shell ones are very flat and quite beautifully colored. They're all very creamy and they're all very uniform, as you can see there. And they have a tendency to be a little bit bigger because it's the whole shell and then the meat of it is inside. Now, the roasted and salted tend to be a little bit smaller, and it's still the shell, but it's been roasted, so it shrinks up a little bit. And you can see they have a little bit of a texture to them, which might even be the salt. I'm not sure. But for this process, it's really good because it gives you some large shells for the outside petals, and it gives you smaller ones for the inside petals. So you're able to do a really interesting flower that could be a zinnia, could be a chrysanthemum. And when you're finished with this project, the great thing is that you have something that you can't really even tell this is made from pumpkin seeds, if you look. And the finished project can be so many different things. You can make earrings, you can make a necklace, you could cover boxes with these because they have such texture that you can see here. So there's lots of different things that you can actually do with the finished project. And we're gonna make a mussy-tussy tassel. Before when we did them, I did them for Mother's Day, and I put a pin on the back and gave them on a postcard for Mother's Day, which was a really neat little project. And this is great to do with kids because it's so easy. There's nothing you can do to make it go wrong. So, which is one of the things that I've been getting lots of emails about is, can you please give us a project that's easy for kids and not very expensive, and we have this stuff at home, and I think this is the perfect project for that meets that bill. So I see somebody laughing at the idea of earrings. Some people like big earrings. So it could be. Or you could make earrings, a necklace, and a crown, which would give you what they call a parure, which means you have 3 pieces of jewelry that all match. So you could make a parure of pumpkin seeds. So to get started, now one of the things I said you needed was cardboard. And that's because we have to cut out a disc to actually make the flower on. Now, what I have here is I had a package of wooden discs that are 1.5 inches. And you can pick these up at the craft store. They come in a bag like this. They're 1.5 inches, and they're like a couple of dollars for the whole bag. And I use these pretty often when I need a round circle because it's already round and I don't have to cut it out. But if you don't have any wood disc, which most people probably don't, just use a piece of cardboard. And that cardboard can be from the back of a cereal box or just chipboard of any kind. But at any rate, you need to cut out a circle that's like 1.5 inches wide. Now, when you start using these, don't get real excited if you ever buy the wooden disc, because I always get these crazy ideas of things I want to do with them, like paint on them and that kind of thing, but they really warp. Now, the glue from this project doesn't warp them too much, but if you're actually going to use them on a technical project where you want it to stay flat, you have to coat it with something before you start working on it. And even then, sometimes the coating warps it up. But enough about wood circles. So, to get started, you can use a box. Any kind of cardboard will work. All you're doing is making a base. Because see, here's your pumpkin seeds. And then there is the back. So, you know, you could even use, if you had a lid from something that you wanted to do it on. It's all flexible. So it's not that important what it is, but as long as you have a base that you can put the pumpkin seeds onto, that's all that's important. So cardboard, wood disc, what have you. So I'm going to start by taking some regular white glue, and I'm using tacky glue because you don't want the glue to be really runny because you want the pumpkin seeds to really go in and stick almost immediately. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pipe the white glue on the disc like this. And then I'm going to start putting in the pumpkin seeds. And the best way to do it, I think, so you end up with a flower that has at least some shape to it that's round. Is you're just going to take your pumpkin seeds, and I put one at the top, one at the bottom, and then one on the side. That. Then you can fill in the middles with one that fits. And as you can see, pumpkin seeds are in every possible size. And you could also do this with sunflower seeds, or I guess any kind of seed that's flat like this. My friend Myra, she wanted to do this project today, and she had a fresh squash. So she opened up the squash and actually put the seeds in the oven. Actually, she put them in the microwave. So she said that was a little exciting because apparently they pop like popcorn. But if you have a fresh squash, you can put it in the oven and dry out the seeds. She said hers turned a little dark, but you're going to paint it anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
Someone asked if you have any ideas of what to use if they don't have seeds.
Somebody asked if they don't have seeds, what to use. You know what? I guess you can use anything that's small and flat. So maybe check for anything you have that's sort of flat. Trying to think what else that would be, but again, you have the flexibility of using lots of different seeds. So that's your first layer, and it looks almost like a daisy. So that's your first layer. And, you know, it's probably best to let them dry a little bit, but to be honest, I never have. So I say skip it. Just keep gluing. So the next glue that I'm going to put on is I'm going to do a dot in between each one of the first row of pumpkin seeds. And that gets some glue up onto the surface. And then I'm going to fill the middle with glue. Now don't do too much because you don't want it to leak out, but do quite a bit. You can see there. So now for the next row, I'm still going to use the larger seeds because I have them. But what you want to do is you want to start angling them. So I'm going to put this seed in, but you can see that it's already beginning to stand up a little bit.
Can you use a glue gun?
Someone asked if you could use a glue gun. You could. It's going to be a lot messier than white glue, but as long as you're careful. And there's a good tip that on Craft Wars, one of the things we really beat the crafters up on was if we received a project that had hot glue strings. And the way you can get rid of hot glue strings when you're finished with a project is to just take a hairdryer and it blows the strings of the hot glue away. So that's an easy way to do it. So
someone suggested using dried pasta.
Someone said dried pasta. That's a good idea. Speaking of opera, many times when I was doing opera and needing big, fancy, ornate costumes, I would use elbow macaroni as the all of the detail, and then I would spray it gold and gold leaf it. And I was even known for cooking a large amount of spaghetti pasta once, dipping it into a rubber substance and piling it on people's heads as spaghetti and meatball hats. So there's lots of things you can do with pasta too, but pasta is the best answer if you don't have seeds for this project, because you can do anything with it. And as long as you spray it with a fixative after, it lasts for a really long time. So I'm continuing to put the seeds around like this. And you can see I've finished the second row. Now, even though there's still a little glue in the middle that's wet, I'm going to go again and put a little more in between like I did previously. That just makes sure that there's a good seal at the bottom. And we're headed towards the middle. So now I'm going to move to the smaller seeds, like these. And they're a little more dried and they have that little bit of texture, but it doesn't really matter. And I'm going to start poking those. That's about the same size, and poking. Now, if you were doing this with pasta, you could do some stick spaghetti out the sides and start there and then go to a different kind of pasta. Maybe like penne would make like a chrysanthemum also. And just continuing to feel. Somebody asked where this would be posted. I'm not sure. We're having trouble with posting these live videos. There's something wrong with my account that it doesn't allow me to save the live, so that's always bad. But Brian has started recording them separately, and so he thinks maybe on Facebook, and if it's good, maybe I'll post it on Instagram if that seems like a possibility. So there, I'm almost to the center, and you can see that I'm still continuing to poke them in at an angle, which is what gives you this pretty shape, almost like a lotus that you can see there. And then I'm looking for a small one for the tiny little middle.
Someone's wondering if there's a picture of those pasta hats.
You know what? There probably are. That was in an opera where all of the chorus, they wore, their ponchos were actually, or their costumes, were actually, they had costumes, and then they had I wanted it to look like a tablecloth that was set with pasta. So I did everybody a poncho in red and white tablecloth fabric, and then their heads became, it was a big plate, and then the spaghetti was piled on top with giant meatballs, and then a big fork that stuck in it. So my opera career was probably more about the jokes that I could do with the chorus and the costumes, because you know, my costumes weren't much different than Glitterville ornaments. So, as you can imagine, which sometimes got me in trouble, but it was also a fun thing. We did an opera in Providence, Rhode Island once that was Cinderella, which is the story of Cinderella and her ugly stepsisters. And Isak Perlman's daughter was the lead singer. And I decided at the last moment, because I had put a giant balloon on her head that the sister was going to pop with a pin when she came out on stage, which I thought was very funny. But at the very last minute, I thought what would be even funnier was if I filled that balloon full of glitter. And so on the first night, opening night, the two divas come out together, and one pops the other one with a pin, and she breathes in to sing, and right as she does, the glitter went right into her. So got me in a little bit of trouble, especially when it's a mainstream star like that. So anyway, there were ups and downs to that, but probably the spaghetti hats do exist somewhere. So now, after that long story,
someone said they look like little succulents.
Well, that was my next thing. I looked for a little pot this morning. You could also paint these green and put them in the top of a pot like a succulent. Now, if you were going to do this, you could build it up a little bit more and make it a little bit taller. But it does look exactly like a succulent too. And while we're standing here talking, these are so cute. I mean, I also want to use them as like cake decoration, because one of the things yesterday when I was playing around with this, I thought, wouldn't it be really fun to cover an entire cake in these? And they're edible, so, you know, that's the thing. People always say, oh, is that going to poison me? You know, sometimes it does. I don't know. But this is very edible, so this is not going to poison you. You just put them on that cake and it looks great. And it was even really cute with a candle in the middle. But as Brian explained to me, that's going to burn down, and that's a natural material, so it's going to cause a fire. But doesn't it make a cute little candle holder? So maybe next season at Glitterville, there's going to be a candle holder version of this, because it's so cute. Make a note of that, Cheeks.
Noted.
So there are lots of things that you can do. Now I've made a hole there, so now I have room for one more petal. This was a seed that wasn't going to have a life. Now it does. Let's see. Right in the middle. Oh, I picked one that was had a bad top. The other thing about this project is, you know, I was thinking about the final project for today, what it would end up being, you know, and wouldn't it be fun to take this and, you know, seashell boxes, which is something I've always collected, like turn of the century seashell boxes. You know how they're covered completely in shells all around, and then a big shell on top. Wouldn't it be fun to take a box like this, which is going to show up later in the week, because this is our next project for Craft Week. I don't know if anybody's doing these things or at home with me, or if you're just going to watch and do it later. It's like my grandmother. She always wanted to rake. She said, I have no intention of raking the yard, but I'd like to know I could if I wanted to. So I don't know. Maybe people are watching and they'll make these later, but if you do, you'll need a box like this. But wouldn't it be fun to take a box like this and cover it completely in seeds, like a seashell box, and then pile up all of your things on top? This is just some I've made, because it would be so cute. You could even cover like a vase if you wanted. What kind of glue is that? It is just tacky glue, Aleene's tacky glue, which is everyone's go-to for glue pretty much these days. It sort of wiped out the white glue market. And then Aleene died and the empire lives on. So I think she saw the success of her glue though before she went. So anyway, now we have our flowers made, as you see here. And what I've decided to do with it is, if you want to paint one, now's the time to do that. And the kind of paint that I'm using is just the cheap paint that you get at the craft store. It's like 99 cents a bottle. People always say, oh, everything you do has so much bright color to it. What kind of paint do you use? It must be expensive. The only paint we ever use are these cheapy bottles. And the reason is they're sort of chalky. They don't have a lot of gloss to them. They're just, you know, sort of plain paints. Now this one says that it's Delta Creative Cream Coat, America's favorite paint. Now I needed this color, but it's not actually my favorite. And they may be made by the same company. My favorite is just Apple Barrel. because it tends to have a richer color. So I tend to go with it more. But for some reason in my paint box today, to get these colors, it's actually Delta Cremocoat. And it worked fine for this when I painted the others. So if you're gonna paint them, the best thing to do is I like to find a lighter color and a darker color, or in this case, a lighter and a brighter. And here's one that I've already painted. And you can see that I wanted it to seem a little bit like it was, I know it almost looks like, if you know 1960s costume jewelry, it almost looks like the popular pins that were everywhere back then. So to get this effect, and you may just decide that you want a cream one, which is really pretty, but in true Glitterville style, we decided, oh, it should be pink. So I have one here that is all ready to paint. And the way I get the effect that I do, turn this down. Somebody says they don't have those here in Denmark. Pumpkin seeds or paint?
I think they mean the paint.
If they don't have that kind of paint, you can use any kind of paint. That is the least important part of this project is the kind of paint. And I generally just pour it out in a cap, which is not the best situation because it makes a mess later, but you know what you do. I also eat paint, which is not good, but this is all eat friendly though, I think. Okay, so when I start painting, I just take a lighter color and I start painting on each petal. And there's certainly nothing too sophisticated about this part of the project. It is interesting though how the raw and shell seeds, you can see they paint very smoothly over here. And then this one that is one of the roasted and salted has a little bit of texture, which again, I think is probably the sea salt that's coating it. And pumpkin seeds are not expensive. I've always bought them in a package like sunflower seeds. They just come in a bag. These, although they look like they're in, gourmet market containers, these came from the regular, very plebeian grocery store. So I think they're out there. The roasted and salted were $3 for this big container, and the flat ones that had not been roasted or salted, that they had to do less to, were only $3, or were $5. So $3 and $5. So as you can see here, I've put a base coat of this light pink on here, and I'm not letting it dry because I want the other paint that I'm about to put on, the accent color, I want it to sort of smear into it and sort of bleed. So I'm going to dip my brush in it. Yes, I didn't wash it. I'm just going from one to the other. And I go into the center and then sort of pull out. And just continue to do that on the petals there. And if you get too much pink on one, you can go back and you can paint a little more light pink. You could also just leave a little bit of the cream showing because these are such pretty colors. This. And then when it gets time to do the center, I wanted to give it a little bit more of an accent. Anytime I'm doing an ornament, one of my first rules when I started ornament making was, I said the most successful things always have pink and orange on them. Even if it's just a tiny little bit, that orange really gives you a pop that changes the look of the project. So you can see here. Now, if you were very careful, I'm not very careful on this particular thing, but you could really go in and you could paint striations and you could ombre them from the bottom to the top or vice versa. And you could really make them, I think if I was really applying myself, I could really make this look like a zinnia and give it lots of different shading. The glue that I'm using is just Aleene's tacky glue, so it's a thick glue. And the paints that we're using are acrylic, water-based paints, which I think is, it's pretty much what I use for everything. Okay, so now you can see that we've got a base coat on that. And now I'm going to bring in a little bit of, this is apricot. And in case you want to know, these colors in Delta, Cremacoat is Pretty Pink, which is the hot one. And Rose Hydrangea, which is the lighter color. And then this one, in Apple Barrel, is apricot. But remember, none of that is important. Just use the paints that you have and the colors that you like. It'll all work. So now, without cleaning my brush, I'm going to dip into the orange and I'm going to go into the centers just a little bit. Now, if you want their center to look just like that's the middle, like a daisy, you could do that. But actually, when I started making it, I actually liked how the orange blended with the other colors. So I went a little crazier and just brushed a little more in. So you can be as wacky as you want to be. Now these could also be refrigerator magnets. If you put a magnet on the back, you could put them on the refrigerator. You could make a headband, wouldn't that be cute? This may be the most versatile project we ever do. I don't know. Okay, so you can see I did not really go and paint the backs of my petals, but at home you should probably, if you like. So that's the painting segment, and it's pretty easy. I've given my paintbrush to Brian, set the paints aside, and now the next part, and I'll just lay this over here to dry, but that's what it looks like. And the next part that we're going to work on is to make it a tassel. Now, you can make this an ornament also. I think I'm a little crooked there. But I'm going to take a piece of, at Glitterville, we tie up everything with these colored twill tapes. But you could use ribbon, you could use string, you could use like a jute if you wanted a more natural thing with the cream. So there's lots of different options. And again, the thing about crafting that you should always remember is, a lot of times when I'm speaking with people, they will say, craft supplies are so expensive, or, oh, I can't get that in my area, or whatever. There's always substitutions. That's the creativity thing about crafting is it doesn't matter how much money you have. It doesn't matter if I come from one of the tiniest towns there are, and there were no craft supplies, but I always had glue. And, well, maybe not always. If we didn't have glue, I remember my Nana, we were doing a paper project once, and we didn't have glue, and I was devastated. And she actually separated an egg and used egg whites as the glue, and it worked just fine. And later, we actually made paint from egg yolk, which later, when I went to university, I learned that, you can make egg tempera by putting, which is how the ceilings in France and everything were done. So you can add paint pigment to egg yolk and actually get a beautiful paint, but that's another project, another day. So anyway, we're back on twill tape. So I'm gonna cut a piece that's about 10 inches long, and the reason I'm doing that is we're gonna fold it, so it's not gonna be as long as it looks. So you'll see there's just like a piece of twill tape, 8 inches, 10 inches long. With ribbon could be a beautiful bookmark, that's true. Yes, I love my Nana also. She was very creative. Another thing that we would do, because there wasn't a lot of supplies, and maybe, there wasn't even that many craft supplies available at the time, but was also making Play-Doh from salt and flour. And it painted beautifully because it absorbed really nicely. So there are so many of these things that you could do at home during this pandemic when everybody's making things at home. But they need supplies, and that's one of the biggest complaints is don't give us anything that's exotic because we don't have it. We can't go get it. So most people have flour, most people have salt. You put those together, put some water in it, stir it, make a dough, and then when it's done, it air dries, and it's a beautiful thing. So we have 10 inches, 8 to 10 inches of twill taper ribbon, and on the very end of it, I'm going to make the bottom of what's going to become the bottom of my tassel. These actually look sort of like shells themselves. I got mesmerized by it there for a minute. Forgot what I was saying. Whew. It's when you love your craft. You're like, that is beautiful. So I'm going to take, and on the end, I'm going to put a little glue on a seed, pumpkin seeds in case you're just joining, tacky glue in case you're just joining, acrylic paint. Okay, so your first one you're going to put on the end, and then I'm going to turn it over, and I'm going to put one on the back of it. Somebody says we're not live anymore, but I still see me live.
I can still see you over here.
So if you don't see me anymore, let me know. Hello? Okay, so on the back of that seed, perhaps it's just life and design on the mind that's having trouble. Okay, so I put one seed on the front and one seed on the back. And that's going to act as the weight. Oh, I see some thumbs up, so we must be working.
Yeah, people can see. I can see.
Okay, so I put one on the bottom, and now I'm going to put two on the sides, and these can be a little bit smaller because you want them to be. I'm still going with the flat ones though, just because they're so pretty. They're like alabaster seeds. Whoop, and they're jumpy. So I'm going to put a little glue on the back, and I'm going to turn it over, and I'm going to glue it there. You see that? And need another small one. Half the battle is finding your seeds and picking which ones are perfect. What?
Tilt it down a little bit.
Brian says, oh, tilt it down more.
Just a little bit.
Okay. Let's see, we're gonna put that. And then we'll glue that there. So we've made this little tip that's like that, and then we're gonna flip it over and do the same thing on the back. And just glue to the backs of your seeds. And you can pair them up for size. I'm not doing a very good job at that because I see the ones on the other side, but you get the idea. So here is what the finished piece looks like. And so there it is. Here's one that I've let dry because it falls off the end if you don't. So this one is all dried already. And now the next thing we'll do is I'm going to take the glue gun and I'm going to fold this down because we want this to become a loop at the top. So there's our ornament. I folded that, or our Mussy Tussy Tassel, which is a very clever name. So there we have, and I'm going to take the glue gun, which my cord is not very long, but I think it'll be okay. So I'm going to take the glue gun and I'm going to tack that down like that. So now I essentially have a loop and I have my shells on the end. Now the thing about this is when you fold over your twill tape or ribbon or string or what have you, you want the end to be where the middle of your flower is going to land. So for me, that's going to be right here, which is in the center. And I thought about putting some seeds at the top. I thought about making some leaves, and I think the leaves would be really cute. I didn't do them. So now I'm going to take my flower and a little bit of hot glue, and you could use regular glue, but it won't dry as quickly. So right now I'm going to use hot glue, which again is the big stringy mess, but there's that. And I'm going to press my ribbon into the hot glue like this. So you can see, and if you wanted, this is very easy, so you don't have a lot of excuses on, oh, it took me forever. So you might as well make two, but if you wanted to do just one, that's what it looks like. But it's a little bit heavy and it comes forward. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take another one, a second one, and I'm going to glue it to the back. And so I put the hot glue there, and now I'm going to take my second flower, and this is where it would be important that your cardboard disc be the same size, because you want them to match up nicely and not one be big, one be little. So then what you've created is a little bit more of a ball shape, sort of a flower ball. And it leaves a little bit of space there, as you can see, because the ribbon has taken up a little bit of that space. But that just gives us the opportunity to stuff more seeds in the crack. So I'm going to take a little bit more glue, and I'm going to start putting a little bit, let me see if this works. I haven't done it yet. Yeah, I think you could add a few more in the center just to make it, just to fill that crack a little bit. It looks a little bit unfinished. Let me see how it will work. Actually, you can fit the pumpkin seed into the crack, I think, and put it. It's like Survivor. We haven't done this before. Okay, so look how pretty that looks when I put it actually glued it into the crack there. Then it's going to make our flower even bigger. This is like crafting wildly. I've always wanted to be on Survivor, and we were talking the other day, and it dawned on me that, one of the things I always worried about is when you're on Survivor, you have to be there a month, and you have nobody to cut your hair, no way to get anything. What are we going to look like at the end of that time? I think you're looking at it, because we're in those times now. We're not really having much doing when it comes in the beauty department. So these will take, some of the cracks are not as big, but you can see, you can really build that up and go around the edges. So in the end, I don't want to dull you forever on this project. So this is a Mussy Tussy tassel. That is pretty cute, actually. So another option is to, because I love gold leaf, is you can take, or some pretty beads in the crack. Yes, and you could also, this might be a tedious way to fill that crack, I don't know. It at least is going to take some time to dry. But you could also take some beautiful glass glitters, some chunky glass glitters, and fill that crack. Or you could just leave the crack. It's up to you. But there's lots of ways to do it. But you know me, I love gold leaf. And so I thought, wouldn't some gold leaf pumpkin seeds be pretty? Tamara says, what do you do with this? I've been talking about this. There are so many things. You can make a box, you can make earrings, you can make a necklace, you can make a refrigerator magnet. Lots of things to do with this project. Here are some pumpkin seeds that have been gold leafed. You can get the seeds at the grocery store. These look exotic, but they're not. They were from a very common grocery store. And there's two kinds of seeds, raw in shell and roasted. If I was only gonna get one, I would get raw in shell. But the smaller ones are the roasted. So yeah, gold leaf is better. Everything's better with gold leaf on it. So I took those and I made the bottom tassel, one side. And then I actually gold leafed the flower, which, I'll go ahead and put this one together. So I think if you try this project, you'll really like it, and you'll see that it's very versatile and easy for kids. And you know, sometimes you make a kid's project and it looks like it was made by kids. And you know, that's okay, but if you're wanting your project to look elevated, this is one that you can do really quickly and easily at whatever level you are.
Tamara meant, where would you hang the ribbon one at?
Where would I hang the middle one, the ribbon one at?
Yeah.
You know, we are ornament makers, so, you know, I'd hang it on the Christmas tree till Christmas was over, then I'd hang it on something else. There's always somewhere that you can hang a fun little thing like this. Or another thing you could do, see, the ideas are endless. You could also, where's a box? Give me like a package box. You could also take a gift box like this one and tie it up with some pretty ribbons and use that as a package tie. Because one of the things I love to do is anytime I give a gift, I love to tie it up with lots of fancy things and then make something to put on top. And if I don't make it, I just usually attach a, somebody's talking about green raw ones. I guess you could use those, but it might look more like a succulent than it does flower. But I like to tie things onto packages because it just gives it an extra feel that somebody hangs tassels and ornaments on their furniture. You could, I mean, as long as you spray this with some fixative. Will you hand me the spray adhesive out of that closet in the back? I'll show you how to add a little bit of gold leaf. Someone has just asked about the gold leaf and I'll show them. So there are lots of things that you could do. Somebody says knobs on curio cabinets, which is a fun idea. There are so many things. It's like every other craft, you know. Why do we make things? And I need the gold leaf. I think it's on my desk. All these things that you make, when they're pretty, you find a place to put them. Somebody says, yes, we did make these at Biltmore once. That I explained early on, which was fun because we did it in the flower gardens there. So actually for gold leafing, there's lots of different ways to do it. I use a gold leaf that we actually, that comes from our factory. So it's different than most people's gold leaf, but the idea behind gold leaf, if you want it to really sparkle like, you know, how this is on the, I think it's in the center cabinet, like on these gold stars and the trim back here, it has to be a reflective material. So it's not just paint. Somebody asked if I paint underneath. I don't always. Like on this project, I just simply gold leafed on top. But the thing behind gold leaf is you just need a fixative and then you need gold leaf. And if I'm doing something large like the ceiling, which is often, Brian cannot seem to find the gold leaf. You need a fixative. And if I'm doing a lot of a surface, and this is something that, you know, some gold leafers would look at me and say, oh my gosh, what are you thinking? Oh, he found it. I use just a Elmer's spray adhesive because I can do really large areas and it's very, very sticky. So it works perfectly. For pumpkin seeds, I just took a napkin like this and I laid the pumpkin seeds on them, and then I give them a little spray of spray adhesive. And because it's very sticky, it's perfect. Now, they do make at the craft store, you can buy, we call it Mona Lisa because her picture is on the bottle, but I'm not sure what it's really called, but it is gold leaf adhesive. And the thing about it is you use it, but you put it on, and if it's not dry enough, then the gold leaf doesn't stick. But if it's too dry, the gold leaf doesn't stick. So often I'm just left with whatever I had before with one coat of something on it. So it's very tricky to use. The spray adhesive is not sensitive. You spray it, you got glue, you got gold leaf, and this is the gold leaf I do, which we are going to sell eventually. We keep thinking, oh, we should make that up and sell it, but we haven't yet. So my gold leaf is very, very friendly. You don't have to use the little soft pieces that you put on like with angel wings. This you just simply take and you just press it on, and voila. So you can see how easy it is, and that's why I gold leaf everything in my path, because it's so easy and it's so beautiful when you're done. And even just a big pile of gold seeds are pretty. So there's lots of different things that you can do with this project. So I hope you like this project, and I hope you do it at home. We all have time to do it. There's going to be other projects this week, and if there's things that you want to learn how to make, let me know. Maybe we'll try those too. And then the other thing that we're working on currently is a craft competition where we allow you we will give you a project. Everyone will make the item in the said time, which is probably going to be, if we tell you on a Monday, then on Wednesday, we will tell you who wins that round until we narrow it down to a small group of people who will then win Glitterville prizes, like an ornament a month for a year. So fun things, and there's no limit on age, whether you're young, whether you're older, whatever it is. So it should be a really fun time. So I hope you like this project. Make it at home, and just remember, have fun, make it, and make every day a holiday.